Hey, welcome back to another video. If you've watched my last video where I went over Game Pass games that I played and gave them all thumbs up or thumbs down, I did mention that there was a certain game coming out the day after I recorded it, and that was of course Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Was out on Game Pass on March 10th. And so I played that game and I wanted to just do a really quick review on my thoughts. And one of the reasons why the last video took so long to make. So, Guardians of the Galaxy. This is one that I really did want to play last year, but because, it's by Square Enix and just the reputation from their last games, I was very reluctant to buy it, and I'm glad I didn't because I got very rewarded as it showed up on Game Pass. And so, just right off the bat, let's just get into it. Visually, this game is absolutely stunning. It's one of the best looking games I played this year, and maybe even including last year. Just the visuals. There's ray tracing in this game, and the ray tracing is when it's there. I don't really want to spoil too many of the location areas, but there's a certain location in the game that you get to kind of midway, maybe like a little before the midway point, where it's ray tracing city. That area is absolutely amazing. So if you do have an RTX card, this game is 100% worth picking up just for that, just like with Control. The characters' banter is some of the best that you'll have in a game. It's super fun. If you really like these characters, like if you like for me, I really like the MCU Guardians of the Galaxy films, and so if you really like those characters, you're going to end up liking these ones a lot too. I think there's a couple of them like Drax and Gamora. I like them more in this game than I do in the films, and a lot of that has to do is they're given so much more time to develop into interesting characters. There's more screen time for them, and they're absolutely great characters in this with a lot more range and emotion versus just reacting to whatever Star-Lord is doing, whatever Chris Pratt was doing in the films. But yeah, so visually the game's good. The story I really enjoyed. I think the story is really well done. It's very engaging. And so not only the banter, but the dialogue is written very well. It's very funny. I enjoyed all of the jokes they had. There's some really great kind of attention to detail here because it is a very linear game. This is not an open world game like Marvel Avengers where it has like big maps and objectives to go on the maps. It's very much you're going down corridors that have a little bit of paths, like tangential paths. And the great thing about it, if you take those paths, your party members, right, your crewmates, the other Guardians of the Galaxy will comment on it about, hey, Quill, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like, it's this way. I think you're going the wrong way. Like, there's a lot of quips and banter with pretty much everything you do because of just how directionally focused the game is, which is a really good point for, like, regarding the story. It's very linear. It's like pretty much you go into this direction and that's what happens. There's some choices you can make, and the only real effect they have at the end is whether or not you have to fight more or less. And so it's not really even that big of a change, so you're not really missing out on anything. And unfortunately that does limit the amount of times you can replay it. There's a couple things where if you did want to replay the game, there are like a couple paths you can take in different story elements, but I don't think they don't really make that big of a difference. I didn't feel the need after I finished this game to go back and repeat those at all. Okay, let's talk about the music. The music is absolutely amazing. The soundtrack, the music they picked for that 80s rock, it's phenomenal. It's really, really well done. Unfortunately, I can't let you hear any of it because it's all licensed. But there is a moments in the game where this is the best part of the combat in the game, is where you can huddle up with your crew, and you can pretty much give them a little pep talk, right, in a huddle. And after you break the huddle, if it's successful, he'll play one of his tracks, and you're fighting to the music. It's some of the most fun you can have in the combat because it's just feels like you're part of the film. Everything's on a short cooldown. You're spamming abilities. It's when the combat is at its best. And so let's go in right in and talk about, the elephant in the room, the combat. It's not good. It's barely passable. I found it entertaining at first and then extremely annoying to deal with throughout the rest of the game. And so when I made like the right choices, so when the last bit of the game happened, I got to skip a couple of the fighting encounters, and I was like, oh, okay, sweet. I really didn't want to fight those things. The combat, it doesn't feel weighty. So like Marvel Avengers, for all its flaws, the combat felt pretty good. I actually really enjoyed the combat. It did feel weighty. You had a lot of abilities. It was fun to play that game. And the only problem with that game, of course, is the content wasn't there. But with Guardians of the Galaxy, the story, the visuals, the banter, the dialogue, you're in it. All you need to have is have some really good engaging combat, and they missed the mark pretty hard on this one, which is just, it's a real bummer because it's really the sore spot. This is like the one thing where I'm like, can I give it a double thumbs up with combat like this, or is it a single thumbs up just because of how kind of just bland and boring this combat gets later on in the game. And the only shining elements of it is the huddle. And so like for me on a personal level, as I'm playing it, I always had this thought, I was like, hey, they really could have went like Yakuza like a dragon route of turn-based combat, but still very stylized and very action focused, where it's very engaging to play. So it's not a stagnant turn-based system, or even how, I guess it's Square Enix, right? Or even like how Final Fantasy does it, where it's even a much more fluid system between turn-based and action. And I think that could have really benefited from this game because of just, it pretty much plays like that anyways. Like Star-Lord doesn't feel like he does very much. I feel like I'm shooting just like a water gun. Yeah, the only time I feel like I'm really doing any damage is when I'm using the abilities of my teammates. And that's when I feel like, okay, now we're, getting somewhere and doing something. That's really the only flaw with this game. So overall, you got great visuals, right? Great banter and dialogue. I really did enjoy the story. The music is fantastic. And just the combat is a massive sore spot in this game, but that did not stop me from absolutely enjoying it and really having a good time by the end. By the time the end credits roll with that great final track that they played right at the finale with the big boss, absolutely big smile on my face, had an amazing time. So I think because of that, and because it's on Game Pass, if you're on Game Pass, this is a double thumbs up game. You have to play it, download it, play it. It's a really good time. You won't regret it. But if you don't have Game Pass, I would say wait for it on sale. Maybe 25% off, 50% off. So like if you don't have an RTX card and you don't have Game Pass, then I would wait for a sale, wait for it to be 50% off. But if you got the RTX card, then I'd say this is a pretty safe bet to get. Yeah, it's a pretty short game. It only took me about 20 hours and it's a really good time. So yeah, so if you got Game Pass, I highly recommend you download and play this game. If you got an RTX card, I don't know what you're waiting for. Jump on this, it's great. So yeah, what's coming up next? I'm gonna have also another short video about the Steam Deck, because I got a Steam Deck, and I'll have a little bit of gameplay and performance on that, and just talking about my kind of general impressions of it over this last week that I've had it. All right, guys. So until next time, take it easy.